This is Nob Ogasawara, descended from Japanese Emperor Seiwa. The Ogasawaras are a samurai clan who once ruled over the Shinano province, as well as parts of Kyushu, the real-life basis for the Hoenn region. Born into Japanese nobility, and as the eldest son of an eldest son, Nob would someday inherit his father's title as feudal lord. But after Japan's defeat in World War II, a series of reforms stripped the Ogasawaras of their land and gave it to commoners, making their nobility entirely symbolic with no actual relevance in post-war Japan. In 1968, Nob's family moved to Canada to start a new life. Nob would grow up to become a translator, and one day be hired by Nintendo of America to translate a new Game Boy game called Pocket Monsters Red and Blue. Over the next decade, he localized 26 Pokémon games into English almost single-handedly, and to memorialize his efforts, 14 Pokémon games have non-playable characters named after him. He translated all of the game's small text, but the big text, like city and Pokémon names, were mostly handled by his boss, Hiro Nakamura, with some help from Nintendo Treehouse. But Nob did name some Pokémon, and also came up with some names in development that were never used. Nob officially left the franchise after Pokémon Platinum, but today we've asked him to make a return in an unofficial capacity, because there were some Pokémon who never got English names, Pokémon that Game Freak created and gave Japanese names to, but scrapped in development before they ever went through the localization process. So in this video, we'll be discussing these lost Pokémon, their development history, lore, and entertaining a what-if scenario where they were never cut and Nob got the chance to name them. He just had one stipulation for us, that he'd only name lost Pokémon who had official Japanese names, because that's how the process worked back when he was Pokémon's official English localizer. That means some lost Pokémon who never had a name at all won't be covered. But before we get started, for clarity and legal purposes, we need to stress one more time, these are unofficial English names. We'll also be using unofficial artwork by Rachel Briggs, some of which we commissioned specifically for this video, to recreate the beta sprites in the art style of their respective generations, and we'll include Game Freak's official beta sprites as well. And now that we have all that out of the way, let's begin. According to Pokemon's creators, Satoshi Tajiri and Ken Sugimori, the first 20 or 30 designs they came up with were all based on the kaiju they saw on TV as kids, most notably in Godzilla movies and the Ultraman TV show. With an index number of 1, this Godzilla-inspired design might have been the very first Pokémon sprite they ever made. Game Freak named it Gyaun, the Japanese word for Godzilla's roar. So, Nob gave it the English name Gawarhead, retaining that original roar reference while also alluding to a warhead, the weapon humans frequently use to try and kill Godzilla. Along with Gawarhead, these next 5 lost Pokémon were all revealed in a biographical manga telling the life story of Satoshi Tajiri. Released in Japan in 2018, the manga included some real-life design documents from Red and Green's development, like the shark Pokémon with a harpoon on its snout that Nob calls Sharpoon. Most official Pokémon names, like Blastoise and Arcanine, are portmanteaus, the combination of 2 or more words mashed together, and many of Nob's names follow that precedent. This Pokémon's name was just Cactus, so Nob named it Cactormus, a portmanteau of cactus and torment, and this one in Japanese was simply named Deer, though it appears to be more of a moose, so Nob named it Ramoose, a portmanteau of ram and moose. This creepy crocodile he calls Goblin, which is Gavile, a type of fish-eating crocodile, combined with the word villain. Interestingly, the manga shows that designers sketched spikes onto its beta sprite, but a back sprite that leaked in 2019 shows us a slightly different Goblin with spikes in place of hair. So, it appears the wacky hair version was made first, then Goblin's hair was later replaced with spikes before ultimately getting scrapped altogether. This balloon Pokemon was likely cut in favor of Jigglypuff, whose Pokédex classification is the balloon Pokemon. This lost Pokemon's Japanese name was Balanda. So, just like many Pokemon whose names aren't portmanteaus, Nob simply anglicized the original name to make its English name Balumba. Another kaiju Pokemon seems to be inspired by Mechagodzilla, an extraterrestrial mechanized villain that first appeared in 1974's Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. One of the few times fans got a peek inside the Forbidden Vault, its beta sprite was officially revealed by Pokemon Company CEO Tsunekazu Ishihara on a Japanese TV show in late 2018. Its Japanese name name was Omega, so Nob calls it Omegaj to incorporate the word gadget, a nod to Mechagodzilla's ability to launch finger missiles and various other weapons. First appearing on Game Freak's website in 1997, two of the earliest lost Pokémon ever made public were scrapped Weedle evolutions. The middle stage is a pupa, so Nob named it Pupal, combining the word pupa with pal, as in a friend, and the final stage appears to be some sort of beetle. According to its designer, Atsuko Nishida, it ended up being replaced with Beedrill because the original just wasn't cool enough. Nob calls this scrapped final form Carapthor, derived from carapace, the exoskeleton covering a bug's thorax. We asked him where the suffix Thor in Carapthor came from, and Nob said nowhere in particular. He just thought it sounded cool. Many official Pokemon names are portmanteaus and anglicizations, but lots of them, just like Carapthor, were chosen for no other reason than sounding cool. This flying fish Pokemon was found in leaked files from early in Gen 2's development, and it was the only beta sprite in that particular leak that came with a name attached, Sato, which may have translated to fish bird. Nob gave it the self-explanatory name Sailwing. In 2018, Gold and Silver's 1997 demo leaked online, revealing dozens of lost Pokemon the fanbase had never seen before. Chikorita was the grass starter in the demo, but instead of Cyndaquil, the original fire starter was Hanuguma, which roughly translates to bear. Nob calls it Cubburn, another portmanteau, this time for cub, like a baby bear cub, and burn. Thanks to a series of leaked sprites, we can see that Cubburn was gradually revised into Teddiursa over the next 2 years of Gold and Silver's development. Cubburn evolves into Flambear, a combination of flame and bear, which together also sounds like flambe, a cooking method involving setting your food on fire. The family's final stage is Bruinous, a reference to Bruin, a folk word for bears, as well as ruinous. Instead of a crocodile, the original water starter was based on a plesiosaur, a type of marine reptile that first came into existence about 200 million years ago and went extinct the same time that the dinosaurs did. Nob calls it Palsio, derived from plesiosaur as well as the word pal, because as a starter it would have been your little buddy. Its first evolution is Presio, and its final form is Donmarine, referencing a head honcho like a mafia don, as well as submarines. Some fans believe they were scrapped in development for looking too much like Lapras, who's also based on a plesiosaur, but since Game Freak never officially addressed this leak, we can only speculate. The 1997 demo also introduced baby and fully evolved forms of Tangela, which Nob dubbed Burgula and Jungula. Burgula uses Tangela's Gela suffix, and the prefix Berg derives from bur, a type of seed, as well as the word burgeoning, which means to grow or flourish quickly, and Jungula is derived from jungle. Quillfish also had a scrapped evolution, Kozapalin. The Kozap part comes from the lightning bolt on its forehead, and the overall name references its visual similarity to zeppelins. Interestingly, another Gen 2 leak contained what appears to be an even earlier beta sprite for Kozapalin, with a more simple blowfish design. This three-stage family consists of a sunfish, a shark, and a gulper eel, with each stage representing a real-life animal that lives progressively deeper in the ocean. The first stage, Molambino, takes its name from the sunfish Mola Mola, as well as Bambino, the Italian word for a baby or child. The shark's Japanese name was Ikari, which translates to both anchor and rage. Its discovery in the demo led some fans to speculate that it was the original namesake for the Lake of Rage, which in Japanese is called Ikari no Mizu Umi. And if that's the case, the lake probably would have been full of Ikari, the anchor-tailed shark Pokemon. Nob calls it Angor, a mix between anchor, anger, and gore, like a gory shark attack. And its final evolution he calls Lureel, a portmanteau of lure, surreal, and eel. In the 1997 demo, Girafarig also had a pre-evolution appearing to be a pair of conjoined twin ghosts. Nob calls them Bipola, derived from the words bipolar and polar, since they're pulling in two different directions. A leak from later in development actually shows a more refined design for Bipola, where they're still twin ghosts, but no longer attached. The leaked file was dated June 1999, just 5 months before Gold and Silver released in Japan, so it seems Bipola almost made the cut, but ended up getting scrapped in the 11th hour. Bipola's design makes a little more sense when you realize that in the demo, Girafarig originally had two equally sized giraffe heads, which was pretty clever since both the English and Japanese names are spelled the same backwards and forwards, just like the design itself. The demo also contained a Ditto evolution Nob calls Mimeo, named after mimeographs, machines that duplicate text, as well as the word mimic. It also ends with with the O sound to match Ditto's name style. Just like its pre-evolution, Mimeo could only learn one move, Transform, so its redundancy was probably why it didn't make Gen 2's final cut. It would have evolved from Ditto when it was traded holding a metal coat, so some fans have speculated that Mimeo influenced the design of Melton 2 decades later. These two Pokemon's true forms are kept intentionally mysterious, since they hide their real selves underneath the skin of a wolf. This may be why they ended up getting cut, as the existence of wolf pelts can raise some dark questions about the Pokemon world. Nob calls the first stage Warfurs, a combination of war and furs, and its evolution is Werelican, a mashup of were and lycanthropy, which is a word to describe werewolf transformations. Both names are also a play on Bofors and Orlikon flak cannons, two brands of flak cannon common in World War II. Warfurs and Werelican were originally brown in Gold and Silver's 1997 demo, but Game Freak changed their colors to blue later on in production, presumably to reflect their ice typing. This Pokemon appears to be the creature latched onto Slowbro's tail, although its data in the demo doesn't indicate it was actually related to the Slowbro family, which could mean it was entirely independent, or Game Freak simply hadn't gotten around to programming the data just yet. Its Japanese name was Taban, suggesting it's the turban that Slowking wears on its head, so Nob gave it the English name Disturbin, a portmanteau of turban and disturb, as its very existence is somewhat disturbing, just like real turban snails. A family of dark-type felines had a bell theme and were only capable of being female, so Nob named the first stage Moibel, a combination of Mademoiselle and Belle, and its evolution he calls Beldaum, a mashup of Belle, Dame, and Bedlam. Their signature move was Heal Bell, which can also be learned by the Skitty family, a moon-themed cat family introduced in Gen 3, who some fans suggest are sort of spiritual successors to the Moibel family. If it hadn't been cut, this bomb-carrying seal would have been the series' first dual-type water and fire Pokemon. Nob calls it Grenmar, short for grenade, marine, and mar, an old-fashioned word that means to inflict serious bodily harm or to destroy. A fitting description for what a bomb does. This one, Nob called Belignin, derived from bell, belligerent, and malignant. It would have been a branch evolution for Weepinbell when it touches a poison stone. In the final game, Sprout Tower's only 3 stories tall, but the internal data reveals lots of unused floors that would have made it 9 stories tall. This might explain why an NPC in the final game still says the tower's central pillar is a 100-foot tall dead Bellsprout. Some fans speculate that Belignin and the Poison Stone were originally meant to play a prominent role in this much larger version of Sprout Tower. In the game's final build, however, Belignin and the Poison Stone got cut entirely, and the tower got shrunk down to just 1/3 of its original size. There was actually an alternate Belignin design discovered in a leak from much later in development, so it seems it was one of the last Pokemon to get removed from the game. These electric tigers are what Nob calls Tyker and Strigar. Tyker is a portmanteau of tiger and tyke, a word for a small child. This was a name suggested to Nob by our artist Rachel Briggs years ago, and when we saw that he chose it for the video, we asked him not to use a fan name, but he said if a name was good, he actually would have been fine using a fan name back in the 90s. Strigar is a combination of strike, tiger, and taiga, the winter forest biome where you can find Siberian tigers. One leak revealed Tyker and Strigar were created during Red and Green's development, which means they actually got cut from 2 generations back to back. They even had an additional evolution in Gen 1, but only its back sprite was found in the leak, so we can only speculate about its frontal appearance. The leak also didn't include a name for the final stage, which means it won't be getting a name from Nob, since he's only giving English names to lost Pokemon with Japanese names. 2 decades before Farfetch'd got an evolution in Generation 8, Game Freak almost gave us one in Gen 2. Nob calls it Luxswan, a combination of the words luxury and swan. It first appeared in Gold and Silver's 1997 demo and later got an updated sprite with a new color scheme. But ultimately, Luxswan didn't make the final cut. Perhaps the creepiest Pokemon in the demo were these 2 ghosts based on Asian culture. The first stage is based on a bear and Waraningyo, which is a straw doll that originated in Chinese rituals. They're also used in Japan, where they're nailed against trees to curse people, similar to how voodoo dolls work. It appears the attack Curse was created as its signature attack. Even though the straw doll Pokemon ended up getting cut, Curse still made it into the final game. Nob calls this one Stroman, derived from straw man, and omen, like how bad omens foreshadow tragic events. Its evolution is both a panda and a jiangshi, also known as a Chinese hopping vampire. Though their depictions vary from story to story, jiangshi often wear traditional Chinese clothes and hop around with their arms outstretched, searching for victims to kill and absorb their qi. You can kill a jiangshi by writing a spell on thin yellow paper and sticking it to their foreheads, which explains the little piece of paper incorporated into its design. Nob calls it Fandarin, a mashup of phantom, panda, and mandarin, as in Mandarin Chinese. Stroman and Fandarin were cut pretty early on in Gen 2's development, probably due to their occult origins and being a little too creepy for the Pokémon brand. Scyther got a new evolution in Gen 2 in the form of Scizor, and Pinsir was originally planned to receive one as well, which Nob calls Tricules, due to its 3 horns and the fact that it's based on a Hercules beetle. These colors were changed from brown to pink later on, before ultimately getting cut just a few months before Gold and Silver's release, possibly to make room for Heracross, who's also based on a Hercules beetle. The demo had a total of 17 baby Pokémon, but apparently Game Freak decided that was too many, so they ended up cutting it down to just 7 in the final game. One of these lost babies was a 3-tailed Vulpix pre-evolution Nob names Volpe, with the 3 eyes referencing the Roman numeral for 3. Nob actually would have preferred to theme the whole family in this style, telling us, "I wish I could go back in time and convince them. It could have been Volpvi, and make 9 tails Vulpix, with Roman numerals representing the number of tails." Volpvi was actually created and then cut during Gen 1, and later got cut again during Gen 2's development, just like these next 3 babies, who also all got cut from both gens as well. Starting with Coinpurr, a Meowth pre-evolution who gets its name from coin purse and purr. Coinpurr's sprite has 3 different coins above its head, but they're not present in its back sprite. This has led some fans to believe that they weren't actually a part of its design, but were placed there by designers as options, so they could later pick which coin shape would appear on its forehead. Baby Ponyta was Colta, derived from Col and Colt, the word for a young male horse. It also ends with ta to match Ponyta. And Orfry was baby Goldeen, whose name comes from Or, which means gold, because the Goldeen family are all goldfish, as well as Fry, the word for a fish that has just hatched. The rest of these scrapped babies were only cut from Gen 2, and as far as we can tell from all the leaks, were never intended for Gen 1. Baby Doduo is Dotery, beginning with DOD to match its evolutions, followed by Airy, which means bird's nest, and in Old English refers to a family of birds. Even though its 3 heads make for an interesting bird's nest motif, the fact that its evolutionary line would have gone from 3 heads to 2 heads to 3 again may raise some uncomfortable questions about where that 3rd head goes as Doduo, which might have been why it got cut. Paraspore gets its name from its evolution, Paras, and also the word spore. Paras and Parasect show a parasitic mushroom increasingly taking control over its host insect, but paradoxically, Paraspore appears to be growing out of its mushroom. This runs counter to the evolutionary narrative of its evolutions, and similar to Dotery, the fact that it doesn't quite make sense might explain why it didn't make the cut. Baby Grimer is called Smudge, whose name and design are both pretty self-explanatory. Smudge was originally pink, but in a later build had its color changed to gray, possibly to make it look less like Ditto before the developers decided to remove Smudge from the game altogether. There's also a Growlithe pre-evolution, Puparon, derived from the word pup, and also pepperoni, because it's a hot and spicy fire type. Another leak from earlier in Gen 2's production contained what appeared to be an even older design for Puparon. Unfortunately, that particular leak didn't include names or evolution data, so it's impossible to be 100% certain that it is in fact an early Puparon. And there's only one lost Unova Pokémon discovered so far that has a name, a dual-type grass and ground Pokémon labeled Nekoyagi, which is Japanese for root goat. It was shown for only a few seconds in a slideshow at Tokyo's Meiji University in 2010. With the help of Helix Chamber member Luminosis, we enhanced and translated that slide to get a better understanding of its concept, which may have eventually evolved into Gen 5's Sawsbuck, or Gen 6's Go-Goat, or possibly both. Nob calls it Tuba Capra, named after root vegetable tubers, and also copra Chupacabra, the scientific word for goats. And just as importantly, it rhymes with Chupacabra, the mythical blood-sucking goat monster that was supposedly first spotted in Puerto Rico in 1995. The last Pokémon on our list is none other than Gorochu, the Raichu evolution cut from Gen 1. According to Game Freak's Koji Nishino, the developers had no choice but to remove several Pokémon from the game, as they'd run out of cartridge space. As a result, some 3-stage families got cut to just 2 stages. Not only Gorochu, but also some of the babies like Volpe and Coinper. No concept art or front sprite were ever leaked or officially revealed by Game Freak. This artwork is based on its back sprite and a description by its creator, Atsuko Nishida, who told Japanese newspaper Yomiuri that it had fangs and horns and looked like a god of thunder. Since Pikachu and Raichu kept their original Japanese names in virtually every language around the world, it seems fitting to leave this one unchanged as well, and refer to it simply as Gorochu. In the near future, DidYouKnowGaming will be holding a live stream auctioning off 1 copy each of Pokémon Red, Blue, and Yellow versions, all complete in box and autographed by Nob Ogasawara himself. All proceeds will go to RetroMags.com, a site that collects and preserves old gaming magazines, helping preserve gaming history. If you want to stay updated on this event, follow DidYouKnowGaming on Twitch and Twitter using the links below. Did you also know that Nob removed a drunk old man and a mushroom-trooping hiker from Gen 1? Or that the anime's head writer was drunk and high in real life when he created Lugia? For more of our videos covering Pokemon history, click one of the videos on screen. And if you're interested in Pokemon etymology and design origins, both factual and theoretical, then check out my channel. That's basically what it's all about. Thanks for watching.